welcome. You all know that I'm not Carol Ross Joynt. I'm Carl Cannon. I'm a journalist. I'm not an expert on architecture, but I had lunch with Hugh, and he's going to help me carry the interview. We're here with Hugh Newell Jacobsen, who is not only Georgetown's best-known architect, one of the best-known architects in the United States. And I'm going to start with a couple of easy questions, but I see from what's already being handed up to me that you all have harder questions, and he won't blame me. Hugh, you came here back to Georgetown after graduating from Yale with your hard-earned degree in architecture in 1958. You told me that you were not very good at math, but that's 50 years ago. So,
still no good at math.
So what brought you to this part of town? What attracted you to Georgetown, and how would you define it as an architectural environment?
My favorite question, just to paraphrase this, is who the hell do you think you are anyway? From that point we can begin. I came here in 1958, that's true, after I got out of defending the flag against the communist hordes. At that time, you know, because I got out of Yale in '55 and I was defending the flag. I worked for Philip Johnson the minute I got out of Yale. And then because I had a commission as an undergraduate in the ROTC from the University of Maryland, I was due to go to Korea, which is a very bad place to go. And they were killing boys and so forth. Mother Yale, I'll get to that later. Anyway, I came here right out of the Air Force, where I was at Langley Air Force Base, the only Air Force base in the world with a yacht club. I taught sailing for 2 years. You know, what did you do during the war, Daddy? But that's what brought me here, and I came back because I graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School, genuflect, in the class of '47, and I thought I had a better chance of opening up my own office because I had more people that I knew from way back then. And I should add that every client, brilliant people that they are, that have hired me since then, I met since I came back in 1948, 58. Those guys all live out in Spring Valley and in Center Hall Colonial, and they'd rather die than live in one of my houses.
Well, how has Georgetown changed in that time?
You know, we have lived in the same house. We did it in '64, a long time ago, and all three of our boys have grown up there. And my son Simon, who works with me and lives across the street with two of my grandchildren, our grandchildren, she did have something to do with it. And he was asked by, I think, the Washingtonian, what has changed? And what do you first remember? And he said, the brick sidewalks when you're learning to walk. You know. And what has changed? He said, nothing. You know, and our other children live out in the West Coast, getting as far away as they could possibly be from me and still be in the continental United States. However, they come home 3 times a year. And the one from Los Angeles gets very upset about how upscale Georgetown has become. There are no weeds growing between the bricks and things like that, which was Georgetown to him as a southern town.
I have another question before I do. Can you hear in the back? Are you having trouble hearing? Chris, where's that handheld mic?
Right behind.
Do we need that? This one? How's that? Turn it on, that will help. How's that? All right, I just realized we were having a great conversation up here, but I wanted you to be able to share it. Which one? Okay, I'll hand you this. You and I don't know what, or he can have his own. All right, is that better? Okay.
Like a rock star.
Well, the TV audience was hearing us, but you weren't. I could tell there was some squinting going on. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Yale in those days. It was a famed school of architecture. Was it much harder than University of Maryland? Was it? How was it? How was it for you there?
The University of Maryland in those days was quite different than the University of Maryland today, where the average grade point average is 3.8. And it's ranked as, I think, the 7th research university in the United States. When I went there, to describe what it was like, I was social chairman of my fraternity for 4 years. I mean,
that's hard
I
duty.
got out with a C average by the squeak of my tongue.
But you found your niche at Yale.
It's I had to switch majors because they didn't know what dyslexia was back then. My parents knew that I was lazy, and the schools knew I was stupid. And as I got into the University of Maryland, I was taking business and public administration, which involved mathematics of finance and accounting and so forth. And I just couldn't do it. So I told my mother I've got to switch majors to fine arts because I was always, as they said, a good drawer. And she said, I wouldn't tell your father about that. And so I wondered what my dad wondered with all these pictures around the house all the time. And finally I told him that I wanted to become a painter. I was going to graduate next month. And he looked at me like I wore a dress. He said, you're going to be here for the rest of my life. And he began to think. And he came to me and he said, how about putting business and art together? And it comes out architecture. The only architect I had ever heard at that time was Frank Lloyd Wright and maybe Michelangelo. And I was all for it because, one, I did not want to go to work. I enjoyed being an undergraduate. You know, you're an undergraduate, you're always the hope of the world. You're a howling success, and the minute you graduate, you're a failure. And so I thought another 4 more years was just going to be heaven. Yale, for some peculiar reason, they didn't have GREs then, or SATs for, you know, a graduate student. I never could have passed it. But I went up for 2 interviews, and I was accepted. My class, 12 people in that class, and that's who we graduated after 4 years. I think we started off with like 30, and the attrition was rather heavy. But it was like all of the stuff that I had studied as an undergraduate that bored the stink out of me, like economics, economical geography, sociology, basic political history. And in my first 2 weeks up there, they started talking about that buildings look this way because of its climate, its religion, its society, its culture. And I said, holy Christ, I can draw that. And I found something I could do. God, you'll excuse me, my children say that I cry during deodorant commercials. I get excited.
Well, finding your life's work is a great thing. You must have done something right there when you graduated. You went to work for Philip Johnson, the great architect who was maybe not as famous as Frank Lloyd Wright, but still as famous. What was that like working for him?
Philip was truly, as the phrase goes, a piece of work. He couldn't draw, and I could only sketch. I hated drafting. It was too damn slow. And he would come in with this messy little thing on the back of an envelope describing the new town of Hirshhorn up in Canada that we were working on. And he would give me this sketch. Now this is the piazza, and that's the piazzetta. And this is 30 feet by 30 feet, and this is 120 feet by 120. So he would come back after lunch, and I had drawn this thing. He then would take out a scale. He said, that's 34 feet by 31 feet. And he'd snap a pencil and throw it across the room, and I managed to keep my job until the Air Force called me up. He was all-knowing. He was an architect right down to his socks. His famous phrase, you cannot not know history. In those days, you didn't. Only Yale taught architectural history. The rest of them were still on a Beaux-Arts Academy thing like Princeton, where you learned to draw shades and shadows projected on Greek vases. Yale had us reading, and you had to read 8 semesters of architectural history to get out of Yale.